Hi, welcome or welcome back to Whispers of Orlean. Take a seat because we're gonna ramble again. Around a month ago, I attended a seminar. The speaker began talking about the ill effects of burning fossil fuels, air conditioners, and various other technologies. So, you must have already gathered the seminar was on environment, climate change, and global warming. And from the general discussions, then we moved on to the the talk moved on to SDGs, that's the Sustainable Development Goals. On the surface, everything looked picture perfect. I mean, you cannot ask for a better plan, right? 17 goals that cover every area of life. Nothing can feel better. But then, if we look a bit deeper, if we look at the ground reality, what we see is that despite such a detailed framework, the reality is something else. The climate refugees are increasing, lakes are drying up, the land under desertification is increasing, animals and species are going extinct or reaching the verge of extinction. We have to come up with technologies to revive the species lost. And tundra, permafrost, everything is disappearing. The earth as we know is slowly dying to be replaced by a desert or something barren. And if, as we are told, all these SDGs, the sub targets, everything are reaching its potential, and if all the targets are being met, why is the reality telling us something else? And a scan through the newspaper tells us like every continent except one or two, there is at least a war that is minimum of one war or some fight taking place. And that it makes us question really, like, while we are using paper straws, cloth bags, um, like reusing, recycling, reducing, war, and like the pollution caused by a war, the smoke, the pollutants, the debris, everything. It's like reversing 5-10 years of achievements. It really makes us wonder if the SDGs and the targets that they claim that are being achieved are in fact real. Also, we hear, and then on the other hand, we hear about countries that pop in and out of agreements that can make huge difference. And amidst all this, we move around believing that the leaders that we trusted, the international organizations that we believe in, are doing something that is good for us. But in fact, or the reality or the truth is, we are just steps away from becoming the next climate refugees or the climate migrants. People who lost everything that they knew, their homeland, their home, many, even their families, everything that they owned, because of some climatic or environmental disaster, or due to desertification or unavailability of food like famine, drought, etc. And sitting at home with all the security, we might think that it is just a distant story or it is not something that will affect us. But the truth is, we don't know when we are going to be the next climate migrant. And that brings me to the next question. If the leaders and organizations have failed us, what can we really do? And it is a really revealing and relaxing question because at the end of the day, It shows us that we, that is you and me, hold the power to cause the real change or bring about the real change. That is, while we are using paper straws, leaders are moving from one city to another in private jets. Celebrities included, and we often hear news and like memes about how the as celebrities are moving or using private jets for like going for shopping. A man is like struggling to drink using a soggy straw. And watching all this, and when we really think about this, knowing that we really hold the power is a real boon or is really relaxing because it, at one end of the spectrum it is all about convenience and comfort, and on the other hand of the spectrum it is survival, hardships, and getting through. And that is the reality for most of us. By knowing that, it is high time that we stop looking towards a leader or an organization to lead us. We can actually bring about the change. That is, it begins by actually rewiring our thoughts and our brain. Any change, any difference, or anything that was brought about was not by an organization. We can check history, check the past stories. It was always the people and the collective efforts of the people that brought about a change, not the head of a country or a council or an organization, because they work and set norms and traditions. And oftentimes, these organizations and leaders are puppets in the hands of um, the capitalist and consumerist society. And hence, the changes that they bring about, we can expect like to what extent the effects and changes are going to be. So, and on one end, we have us, that is the common man, layman, the consumer. And on the other hand, we have our leaders. It is we who decide the trend. And we do have proofs for this. I'm not talking about violence or revolt or revolution, but then rewiring our brains, like what we have been taught to believe. Like, I often come across people who argue that why worry when science and tech is improving at such a fast pace and it can solve everything? No, it is not going to solve anything. Then why aren't we seeing any proof yet? They say there is green fuel, there are electric cars and vehicles, renewable energy, but then where is the evidence? Nothing is changing. All we get to see is the climatic phenomena have become drastic and is getting out of hand and unpredictable every passing year. More and more people are losing lives because of heat waves and torrential rains every year. We don't have any proof to believe that science and technology is actually doing anything rather than like maybe building an air conditioner to deal with the increasing heat. So it is not. The truth is, science and technology, as of what we know today, has a limit and it is not going to solve anything of value or worth solving. It really comes down to us, our lifestyle, our choices, our way of being. And in order to bring about that change, it starts here. That is within our heads. The moment we start questioning what we have been taught to believe, that convenience and comfort is not everything. There is a life beyond that. And real pleasure, life, and authentic living actually happens beyond this science and technology and all those things that we have been taught to believe. Can you believe I mean, can you just think about how powerful and useful the human body used to be? And right now, as much or the farthest we can go to make using, that is for majority of the population, I'm not talking about those into manual labors and heavy work, because they are actively using their body and making the best use of it. It is just me and you included. um, we have hardly unlocked the potential of our body, our mind, because everything is easy these days, and we are under this notion that it has to be easy, and that is life. And if we really think about it, that ain't life. It is not about making things easy, but making things worthy of doing. While numbers and mm, patterns take up our head, are if we are locking ourselves into cabins and cubicles, everyone, like the one and two people, like the situation is almost reaching to that extent. That is, with vitamin D deficiency, almost everyone that we come across these days has vitamin D deficiency. And I mean, I'm not in a position, or I don't know have enough information or knowledge to comment about that. Like if it is really because of our lifestyle or something. But then obviously everything finally comes down to our lifestyle, right? The the entire section of lifestyle diseases and everything. So at the end of the day, it is we that have to make the choice, because we are at the end of the spectrum that is suffering, that has to put up with all the catastrophes and climate disasters, and like landslides, flood, forest fires, whatever it may be. And just it begins by not something drastic. Start thinking a bit differently. Understand that no one is coming to save us. At the end of the day, it is in our own hands. And that we don't have to keep on consuming in order to make our life meaningful. And yeah, yeah, that is the crux of the entire discussion. That is, you and me are the real power holders. We are really what sets the entire trajectory in motion. And hence, if we can really start thinking in a different way, in a way that really talks to us in a way that we understand that life isn't about convenience or simplicity. By convenience, I don't mean um, making things simple, but then it is understanding that it is an amalgamation or a mix of everything, not one thing over the other or one thing is better than the other. So, yeah, that is it. So far, we talked about climate change, SDGs, the inability of our leaders and organizations to meet what is really required, and the entire process that takes place behind the consumerism, the capitalism, and the power that we, and the actual power that we hold within the system. And that is what the system really fears, us understanding our true power and potential. The day that the common man unlocks that power and that potential, the entire history is going to be rewritten, and that is for sure. Anyway, have a good day. Take care. That is all for today. And again, until we meet again on these forgotten parts of Aurelian, stay safe and may you find stories in your shadows and may your life happen in the in between. Take care. Bye bye.